Are we technologically available to start?
Yes.
All right. It is 6 p.m. and I'd like to start the March 21st meeting of the Montgomery Economic Development Corporation. And by calling this meeting to order, Richard, do we have any public comments?
We do not.
Okay. Let's start with item number 1, minutes of the regular meeting of February 21st, 2022. Does anyone have any comments, approbation, or changes, or anything of that type? All right, would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of February 21st, 2022. That motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. All those in favor of that? Oh, sorry, any further comments on this item?
No.
All those in favor of approving the minutes of February 21st, 2022, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion carries unanimously, and we will approve the minutes of the regular meeting of February 21st, 2022. And before we go on to item number 2, I'd like to point out that we do have a quorum of 4 members. We are missing Ms. Langley, Mr. Nelson, and Mr. Sanford. Item number 2, financial, and here comes Mr. Nelson, so I spoke too soon. We are only missing 2 members. Item number 2, financial report for February 2022. Richard, would you like to carry on in Carol's absence?
I'm sure I can't do quite as well as she does, but I will do my best with that. This month, you may notice the report looks a little bit different. As Myron Sanford mentioned last month, we were doing the switch over from QuickBooks to Encode, so you will see some of that for the rest of the fiscal year. Of note here in the financial report, you can see the interest rate is up to index pool 0.07%. We do expect to see that continue to increase in the future. The sales tax transfer is $79,893.81. It's transferred on March 11th, and that will occur on next month's books. The reports in front of you. One of the details to note is that this month, both the QuickBooks and the Encode version of the GL are supplied to help you transition over. After the fiscal year ends, we'll just be putting them out in Encode. Of note in the disbursements, the largest disbursement of $5,000 was a check to Reflected Life Ministries. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to take those or deal with Anthony on them.
They look fine to me.
And I'd also like to point out that page number 14 in our packet is, I believe, Anthony put something together in Excel in order to make this grouped the way that we're used to seeing it. So if anyone would like to see any additional columns or additional information in any way, please either let Richard know, myself know, Anthony know directly, or Carol, just not 3 board members at the same time talking, and we can make those changes. This is, he obviously tried to make it so it's easiest for us to look at it based on what we're used to, but that's the nice thing about Encode is that we should be able to juggle things a little bit more easily than we were able to in QuickBooks in order to make it tell a more complete picture if you're used to looking at it a different way or you think that we needed to be looking at things in a different way.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Let's make a motion to accept the financial report.
A second.
It has been moved and seconded that we accept the financial report for February 2022. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the financial report for February 2022 as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no. The motion passes unanimously, and we will approve the financial report for February 2022. With the board's approval, we should go, I've been requested to move item number 5 upwards as the first item of discussion. Does anyone have any objections to that? Okay. Item number 5, discussion and consideration of establishing a policy for MEDC's financial participation in signage grant.
The last meeting, there was discussion on developing specific criteria for MEDC to provide funds towards business sign grants, including what specifically should be considered the responsibility of business owners and what the MEDC could or should consider eligible when awarding grant funds. We've attached basically a starting framework based on discussions we had at the meeting and discussions we had as staff following. Bring it back here to get further input from you, make sure this is on track with discussions. Do you want us to take this and then form it into a final policy? Is there anything that you see that we have left off that you expected to be included?
No, I just think that if, as we've said before, if we open up this can of worms, we have to be careful that it does bring some recognition to the city, especially if MEDC is going to have participation from a financial standpoint. I don't know how other cities handle this, but being a historic destination, I think this is a very good starting point. And I think that we should, we should encourage our, if we're going to participate, we should encourage them to brand it, brand these signs a little bit more towards our, some of our unique, the uniqueness of our city. I think is a good start. How did you guys come about this particular, did you boilerplate this off of something else, or?
Well, we started with the starting point of the discussion was basic signage was part of the business operation. You're a business owner, so
yeah.
I think you understand that. And and part of the discussion here last month was, but something beyond that. Well, what takes it beyond that? Some of that, what we talked about internally was okay. In the middle of the second page of the back end there, something that celebrates the birthplace of the Texas flag graphic representations. Wording including logos of or wording from Montgomery, Texas.
Right.
Those could be additions that go above what would be just basic. Other considerations potentially that we discussed is, well, what if a more historic look was applied? Maybe, like in the Woodlands, they have wood signage for businesses, even if you're a gas station.
Right.
That doesn't cost the same as, as a standard plastic sign that they use everywhere else. There's additional cost there, not just for the wood, the maintenance of it, especially around that with regards to painting and upkeep. So in regards to that, our thought would be something that's specifically historic looking, and then, well, if your regular sign costs X, and then having something that would meet these criteria cost X plus Y, then the EDC would look at Y with a cap.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about, like Breckenridge, how they have, the entire city has a look. And when you go through, it's all very whimsical. I say whimsical, not whimsical, but it's very much Colorado. It just has they're all wooden signs, and but they're well designed, graphically speaking.
And we have another agenda item on wayfinding signage that gets more into that here.
Well,
so for this, it's about sign guidelines for grants.
Well, and I agree that we need to make a decision on how we're going to go forward on that. We're already starting to get requests over and over and over again. So I think we definitely need to pull some direction together, so that businesses that do want us to participate have, and that's kind of the reason why we want to pull this to the top, so the folks can have some direction as to which way we're going to say yes when it comes to a request.
General guideline.
Yeah, guideline.
Yeah, if you like the guidelines or the outline here, we'll bring it back to you next month in the form of policy document.
Wait.
Would it include like more examples? Like I know you mentioned wood signage, it's not in here, but I think we would agree that wood signage is more historic for our city. So is that something we need to have examples of? Like these are different examples of historic signage?
That would be my intent for bringing it to a policy point, because this discussion for tonight was more general. I didn't want to come in with photos of this or that, finding out, well, we didn't really want to go this direction, but we do want to go this direction. Now that we've got some direction on
So
this.
can I actually disagree with that? One of the articles, I've been trying to dive deeply into this. One of the articles that I read that I think is the National Historic Trust, but I could be wrong on that, actually says that a loose overarching policy is probably better than specific guidelines, because each building will be different, and Your town probably developed in a different way, and each sign needs to reflect the historic character of the building itself. And there was a great article from Beatrice, Nebraska, of all places. I haven't looked it up on the map, so I can't tell you exactly how large it is, but a lot of do's and don'ts that talks about architecturally sensitive characteristics, and your signs should really reflect that rather than trying from the center to legislate the specifics of the item. And you'll end up, signage has always been kind of a hodgepodge anyway, so by trying to make it uniform from henceforward, will actually reduce the historic look, ironically.
I think that makes sense. It goes against what you were saying about Breckenridge, because that's super uniform on signage, but you're saying the hodgepodgey looks make it like,
Right.
Yeah.
it makes it look more historic. Like even my own house is a hodgepodge of two types of architectural styles, so that's
Yeah, I agree.
reflective of those.
So Beatrice says, if I may, there are dues for signage. Use signage appropriate to the design of the building facade. Use historical photographs to aid in the design of a new sign. Ensure signs are designed and installed following their sign code, which makes sense. Use signs that respect the size and scale of the building and street and do not obscure the building's important architectural details and features. Pay attention to how the sign appears in relation to the entire facade. Take cues from the colors of the building for the colors used on the sign. Use signs that are attractive in appearance and are pedestrian-oriented in shape and size. Use professional sign companies with experience working in historic districts to design and install signage. Use signs that are constructed of quality and durable materials. Workmanship and quality are essential. Use incandescent lighting to light signs at night. Obviously, this is prior to alternate lighting options. Use light that shines down on the sign rather than up to avoid light pollution. Use pedestrian-friendly signage that provides information simply and legibly. Use professionally designed laser cut and applied window lettering on storefront windows and doorways. Remove temporary signs such as banners and paper signs and windows in a timely manner. Use signs that reflect the individuality of business. And then do not allow signs that obscure significant architectural details or features. Allow signs that dominate the facade of the buildings. Use signs with poor craftsmanship or poor quality materials. Use handwritten, homemade, or cheaply constructed signs. Clutter the front of the building or display windows with signs. Window signage should not cover more than 15% of available space. Use vacuum-formed or internally lit plastic signage. Use standard commercial neon lit signs, or use fluorescent colors.
So Becky, you're speaking specifically about if the MEDC is awarding grants. It has nothing to do with, let's say, one of Wade's buildings or whatever. I mean, we have other sign ordinances that sort of attend to those, correct?
Right. So if Wade brings in Trader Joe's, which they will still have to have a monument sign of a certain size located in a certain place that has like a bunch of other guidelines that they have to conform with. And they could have a plastic form sign, should that be their style, and it could be possibly neon. I'm actually not sure if our ordinance does anything with neon. I'm not sure anyone uses it.
But it's on the city side more.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
So what we're talking about specifically here is how, if we're going to participate, how we would grant that, because we want to bring economic development awareness.
This is just indicative of how this municipality decided to go for legislating their signs, which is really more of a general guideline for things that they think are important, because they found it difficult to be very specific about what you could and couldn't do in their historic district, which I think matches with a couple of other things that I've read about, historic preservation, and each building is different, and historically cities have grown at different paces, so you might find different types of buildings within the same district even.
So the intent is we want to incentivize historic signs. I'm afraid it's going to get too convoluted, where you've got one ordinance here, and then you got a sub-ordinance here, and then on one hand, I don't want to have, every time someone wants to come have a grant, we have a 2-hour-long conversation about what we like and don't like about a sign. I feel like that's too much. But also don't want to have like two different criteria for different things. So maybe having it more loose is probably the best way to go.
And can we delegate things to the planning and
or-
zoning commission who spends time thinking about signs?
Or maybe we do have like a part A of the sign criteria, and then, hey, if you want to get, economic incentive, this is part B over and beyond, where maybe it is just one ordinance, but they're broken up into 2 sections. But
I think that's a good approach. Because, again, if you want economic assistance, there should be some quid pro quo strapped to that. So I don't know what this is going to ultimately look like, but I think this is a good start. There should be some criteria that gives Mr. Tepp an opportunity to craft his sign according to that, so that he doesn't have to keep coming back to the well.
Right, over and above, again, what we want is something that's a higher standard than the basic sign, because we want these things to reflect historic Montgomery.
Wait, you do this all the time?
Yeah, it feels almost too loose, where it's pretty much what they have today. They can pick and choose pretty much whatever they want today. I think creating more of a presence of you're here is what's important. Otherwise you get lost in the same mix. It's going east of 2854 to Conroe. It's not a whole lot different. So if you could create some parameters because they're going to go the cheapest route every chance they get. You leave it open for them, they're going to go the cheap route.
yeah, it's almost like they're going to come in, we put wood on the sign, so that's historic. Well, it doesn't look historic at all. So, and we have these conversations every time, so maybe we do need to have something there.
Yeah, there's got to be some guidelines.
So one of the things that Breckenridge has that I think makes it look particularly not historic but distinctive is raised lettering. I think that's one of the things that makes it look upscale is an measure.
Can we get like an opinion from an architect or something? It's like, hey, here's like 10 things that we need to have, and I don't want it just to be based on our subjective opinions unless that's what we want to do. But
we don't want to be the Woodlands.
Like,
we don't want to be the Woodlands, but there's a reason why the Woodlands is looked upon as being of high quality.
Right.
And,
Well, it started out as a master plan.
Right.
So it was the first piece of work.
Does our landscape architect have like 5 things that we could?
there we go, yeah.
So after a conversation with Richard, had drafted these, so this wasn't boilerplate things, but all ours, so that's where, so in writing these, I'd be glad to, kind of, take the guidance on a little more of a, I guess, more of a narrative aspect that, that you're looking for with regard to history and stuff, but just to, as a starting point, this was kind of a, kind of absolute, kind of the bare bones of it, if you will.
I just think it's important that we're at a kind of a turning point where people are attracted to be here, and we have, for lack of a better word, been over enough already that the consumers are going to, or not the consumers, but the retailers are going to come here now. There's a reason to be here. Before we were begging them to come here for obvious reasons, but now you've got a pretty good situation where you can demand that they adhere to some guidelines.
I would say, preserving the historical nature of the city is economic improvement to the city because people are attracted to the city because of the historic and small town feel. And I think part of what we're doing here is trying to keep that in order to bring more businesses here. So, and more tourism and people and stuff like that.
Everything should have a commonality, whether or not it's exactly alike. Something should be able to tie. You should be able to tell where you're at.
Consistency.
And we're a little bit limited on what we can do due to legislation, but I think if we have stuff like this where we're incentivizing these things, I think that's the best tool that we have to preserve the history, the feel of it. And I don't know if I like the X plus Y, we're only just paying for the additional. I want to maybe incentivize a little bit more.
Agreed.
Because, then they're just going to go to the X. Like, why go through all the extra effort to pay for all this other stuff and then have to go to MEC and get a grant? I would be willing to pay more for a sign if they want to upgrade it, basically. So I wouldn't.
I agree.
All right, well, we can take all these comments and then put them together into a much more defined document for you and bring that back next month.
What do you think, Wayne? Yeah. See, that's my thought exactly. Let's go even beyond you know, the 5K, if we can do something where we can get it, incentivize them to really, you know, focus on getting something closer to what we all agree would be, you know, remarkable in terms of continuity. It's time, we're growing. We might as well go ahead and try to, you know, implement something now that would give us a little bit more of a brand, if you will.
But what I'm hearing is that we have agreement that the signage grant should really be focused on the superior to the basic sign.
Yes.
So basic signs are part of the operating of, when you open a business, you get a sign.
Right.
But if you want to participate with MEDC, you get the Primo sign.
Yes.
That's consistent with our brand, city's brand and history.
Yeah, I think that's important to protect, and I think if we're protecting the brand of the city, we are encouraging economic development in the city by attracting tourism and businesses who want to be a part of our city due to its history, you know.
Yeah.
Well, even as we grow to the east there with the brick and mortar look more so, that could even be tied more so even
Right.
with some signage and landscaping, things like that
Well,
also.
I would suppose
think
that
that's
it's,
important.
you know, kind of like, you know, Spring and Conroe call themselves the Woodlands because it is a brand that they would like to be part of. So even if they're on the edges, they make an effort to be seen as the center or as part of that. And hopefully that will eventually happen with Montgomery. People will do their own changes to be part of Montgomery, the historic Montgomery and the brand of Montgomery, even if they aren't actually.
Well, and if there's a way to do it, I think it's important to tie it in all four directions, not just EDC, the historic district. I think reaching out the city limits of the, call it the loop.
Right.
You know,
Well, the more successful our area is, the more successful everything in the city limits is, which is the more successful historic Montgomery is, and it all ties together in both directions, from the outside in and from the inside out.
So do we need a motion for this, or we're just going to table it for
No,
discussion?
we're just going to pick it up at the staff level, take all these comments, and then we will take the basic document that you've seen in there, and then we will further refine that
Okay.
based on this discussion, and get that to where then you can look at it next month, and we can either get, ideally it'd be enough to approve, or at least then come back 1 month later with final details.
Is that amenable to everyone on the board?
Yes.
All right, then we'll just move on rather than tabling it or making a motion, just because we're all in agreement that they'll come back with this item next month. All right, so we'll move on to item number 3, discussion and consideration to reconsider declined economic development grant request application from Troy Tech LLC.
In February, the EDC Board of Directors considered and declined to support an economic development grant from Troy Tech LLC. Mr. Tech, his letter is attached, has asked the EDC Board of Directors to reconsider their decision. I did not find that the EDC had any specific policy for reconsiderations or for not. For instance, there's no policy on, someone has to wait X amount of time before coming back if declined, or that there is even a policy for reconsideration. Those are both items which we'll probably discuss at a later time.
Right.
However, in receipt of that letter, Mr. Tech is here. I met with Mr. Tech and Mr. Haddad after the last EDC meeting. They explained the EDC's reasoning about signs, some of which we've included in this discussion, about that signs are the basic level of sign that represents those businesses is considered something that's a business expense. Some of what was in discussion with him, he's detailed in his letter. They are present here today.
Okay.
Any other questions for me?
So, in looking over some of the comparables, I guess, lack of a better term, because I'm not real sure, pretty much everything that happened prior to us becoming a board, or the people that are now on the board, it's hard for us to kind of, really, we weren't involved with that.
Well, I can tell you that, I've been with the city for 3 years.
Yeah.
Everything on there is before my employment.
Exactly. So I don't doubt, and who knows? I mean, I wasn't here, but I don't know the reasoning behind it. I'm sure there was discussion. You'd have to go back to the minutes and see. But I think by forming a sign for Mr. Tepp, a sign policy, that he can then come back to the board and say, I'm going to adhere to this. We're going to do a little redesign, and it fits your criteria for an economic development corporation grant. Then at that point, I think it's worth consideration. But we've every business, Wade owns buildings where people come in and retail, and they put their signs up. Every business has a retail storefront has to put their sign up, and it has to match the planning and zoning rules and regulations. If we open this up to where you can bring any kind of sign, and economic development is going to be participating in those costs, it's going to be as I've said before, I think it's going to just open up a can of worms. I don't know. It's just every business has a business obligation to add that into your budget as you're opening up. If you want to do it the way you want to do it, then just make sure it follows city guidelines. And if we're going to participate, then it needs to be defined, and they need to have an opportunity to develop it based on our guidelines and whatever those guidelines are going to look like within the next month or so. That's my opinion.
I think the precedent is weird. I mean, I appreciate the homework on it, but there's a lot of things on here that I don't even know I would have ever approved, but I don't know the context of those situations, but water and sewer tap fees under economic development grant, I don't know. And things are different now. We have a different board, different context. We've got much stronger growth here, and so we can be a little bit. We have the privilege of being a little bit more choosy, I guess, on what we're incentivizing.
Well, we have a lot of development that's going to help Mr. Tepp and his business on 1097. The city itself is going to be redeveloped over the next 5 to 10 years in a way that is extraordinarily attractive. It's going to cost millions and millions of dollars, and all that infrastructure and development is going to be a gift to all the businesses in the area. So I think we just need to give Mr. Tepp some more guidelines, and so that he can, if he still wants to, make a play for some assistance. But we all agreed that we're doing all these businesses a disservice by not creating guidelines. Now we're going to create guidelines. Then they can come back based on those guidelines and decide I do or I don't want to have MEDC participate.
And I think what Ryan was saying earlier is that the amount of funding will actually expand with the guidelines rather than limiting it. So this could be an advantageous situation where the sign is.
Yeah, I mean, 5,000 may be a drop in the bucket. We may be able to do even more. So I think that's kind of where we're headed with this. We want to create something that is a policy that all businesses will be afforded.
Richard, what's our budget on this right now? How much do we have left in this category?
In the economic development grants, I believe we have $15,000 left for the fiscal year. And that's not to say that the EDC can't redirect funds if there is a specific reason it felt worthwhile.
Okay. So do we need a motion, or what are we doing?
We would need a motion.
Huh?
Or I guess you could table it until Mr. Tepp comes back with his redesigned sign and applies under the new guidelines. That would be an option too.
I think, okay. So I think that's what we'd like to do is let's create the guidelines, give Mr. Tepp an opportunity to come up with a redesign that fits within those guidelines, and then we can make a decision based on that if he's amenable to that.
Okay.
So that would be my motion. Kind of.
Would somebody like to kind of second?
I'll second it. I'll second it.
It has been moved and seconded to table the application for the Economic Development Grant request from Troy Tepp LLC to give the applicant a chance to resubmit given the updated sign guidelines.
Yeah.
This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion on this item? All those in favor of tabling the economic development grant request application from Troy Tep LLC in order to give the applicant a chance to resubmit given the updated assigned grant guidelines, say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The motion passes unanimously, and we will table the economic development grant request application from Troy Tep LLC. Sir, please resubmit. We would definitely like to have you be our first updated under the signed applicant under the new guidelines. I think it's an important corridor, and we'd love to have a great sign there. Item number 4, discussion and consideration of economic grant request from Montgomery County United.
Okay, you have the paperwork in front of you. In reviewing this grant, they did determine it fell within the legal framework that the city, or that the EDC could approve, being potentially in the economic interest of the city, which is the general guideline. It fits the other specific guidelines that falls within potential for both quality of life designations as well as the nature of the event. It was right to the historical nature of the city. He was celebrating family and history. And the location of this grant request, the event goes right through the city. So it is something that will bring people to the city. So that's what comes to an area that falls within the jurisdiction of the EDC. Specifically, Montgomery County United, they're putting on their homecoming festival. It's a 2-day event, May 27th to 28th. On Friday, May 27th, they'll provide lunch to first responders and veterans that are from Montgomery. The lunch will be served at the City Community Center on Liberty Street. On the 28th, it'll include a car show and parade that will go through the city. The parade will start at Ransom's, go to 105, 149, north towards 1097, and it'll stop at Sharp Road. The very end of it does take it out of the city, but the predominance of it is within the city. The goal of the event is to welcome people from Montgomery who have left the area to come back home and celebrate their place in the community and their place in the community's history. It's anticipated that Montgomery County United will award 2 college scholarships to local students planning to study history or agricultural studies. And Montgomery County United has already been working with the city to coordinate this event within the city's ordinances and guidelines.
So where's the car show? Or is it just cars on the parade?
Yeah, cars on the parade.
Are they going to park anywhere?
No, just in the parade.
How many people do you expect will come home?
It varies each year to year. And just getting through the pandemic, everybody's still afraid, and now they got a new variant. So who knows? Last year we haven't had it. But I think it's a good time to do it. We can't be afraid to keep promoting unity and preserve our history. So that's one reason why I got in. Montgomery County United, we do a lot through the course of the year. And it's just one event to highlight what a great time we have. And last few years, of course, East Enterprise, Montgomery County United has been taken care of. But 3 years ago, the city did have to. So we're back again asking for the help to preserve a part of history, because Montgomery as a whole can't function without keeping the history in mind, so.
And where you have some unknown about how many will attend. What I have noticed about other events that have been local post-pandemic is that they have picked up with as higher numbers than they had before.
Well, I would say 500 to 1,000 maybe. That's a good number. And one reason why the parade, we also consider the safety aspects of it because you would have animals. So that's why the last big day I'll be on private property outside of the city, but the first day, the those kids that can write those essays, they'll be here reading the essays about what they will give back to the community after they graduate. So it's a plan event. I got most of it wrote down. This event that started back as early as 1954, but over the years, it got a couple of black eyes, literally. So right now we want to rejuvenate it and make it an event where Miss Amy can help facilitate us and make sure we're on the right track.
Just FYI, the EDC's current policy towards events do not support money going towards scholarships, so fortunately.
No, that would be for that.
Right, I know, so fortunately you've got, your total estimated cost is significantly higher than your requested cost, but that's just been a policy in the past.
Sure,
So
sure.
just wanted to make new members aware of that.
Well, East Enterprise will be taking care of stuff.
Of course they are. Easley Enterprises is a fine organization.
Yeah, we try.
Awesome. Can I see what you have in your hand?
Oh,
I'm always curious about historic things.
open up the first. Really be a good time for you guys to do some really good barbecue.
I know you got some good barbecue.
And one correction, earlier, Amy pointed out to me that I said that their luncheon would be at the City Community Center. I didn't edit my report, it's at the Community Center, the county's Lone Star Center on Lone Star Parkway.
Okay.
You know, because they need a larger building than the building we have.
Arnett, are you gifting, is it a paid event? Tell me a little bit more about it.
No, it's, everything will be, as far as the meal.
Yeah,
Yeah, all that's, is
it's all, so anybody can come and eat and?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, even till it's gone.
Except you.
I can't stand my food. I'm tired of it. Well, I'll say this about Montgomery County United. There ain't much they don't do when it comes to a servant's heart. Arnett and his team. I mean, you think about it, everything from light up the park to all the church work they do and all the, it's goodness follows them wherever they go. And so, you know, my vote would be to do whatever we can to help them continue to grow our influence by especially when it comes to, you know, first responders and that kind of thing. I mean, he's just got a history of doing nothing but giving. And so if we can give back a little bit, it seems to me that would be a drop in the bucket compared to what he's gifted us.
Well, and just to touch on, make it really bring it home, I don't want to look in the paper and see a kid run down my street. So it runs a little bit deeper than that. You know, when you give a person a purpose and they have a purpose-driven life, then all the nonsense dissipates.
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah, you don't necessarily give them a handout as much as a leg up.
That's right.
And it's always been, that's a yeoman's cause, you know, but you continue to carry that yoke, and I think we have a lot of respect for you and what you do.
Sure, thanks.
Do we know how much it's going to cost to do the security, or how much is going toward city employees? Is there an estimated number on that, Amy?
The police are saying, I believe it's 800 for them just to escort from Ransom's up the highway there.
Okay.
Are they having to close down any streets, or?
They won't close them down. They'll block off
The parade route?
have them there, but they won't completely shut the streets down.
Got it. How long do you expect the parade to last, Arnett?
Maybe an hour and a half, that's the most.
And it starts what time?
9.
9, okay.
And your staging points, what, Ransoms, and then you come out?
Yeah.
Come out on 105?
It's cars and animals, cars and horses?
Mm-hmm.
You said 500 plus? Is that what you're saying,
Yeah,
people?
something like And again, you know.
It's two-a-day event?
Yes, sir.
Are we gonna market it at all, or are you just planning
They
to?
don't put it in more bids.
I always have my reservations about events because I don't ever know how much money it's actually bringing in, so that's just the thing that's blocking my brain.
The PACE event is a very historical event for the Black community. And I believe the goal is to reach out and to bring us together as one group, and not the Black group and the white group, but as a town.
Gotcha.
But Amy, I'm sure glad you said that, because as you can see, I'm white as you guys. And I hate those words, because that's the divide in our country now. And it can't be the divide in our town. And that's the stupidity that I try to stamp out by taking lead and being the liaison, the go-to person in the community. Just try to, hey man, you know, if you could, are you supposed to bleed for me? You know? So it runs, although it happens, the division.
Right.
And that's what we gotta get away from.
Yeah.
You know, I did not want to say, I'm doing it for the Black community. No. I'm doing it to more or less galvanize what we're supposed to be representing as human beings and children of God.
That's right.
Amen.
That's right, Arnett. Well, if y'all ever seen Arnett on the front row of church, you'd know he's got it. He's got the spirit.
You know, these events that we're doing, while we spend a lot of time talking about them, they're around 15% of our overall budget, but I think that, you know, in terms of the amount of visibility that they give the town and people that they bring in, which does lead to home sales, you know, like things like the water party are clearly, you know, resident happiness kind of things. The other ones, maybe you go to, maybe you don't. You know, the quilt walk would be an example of, you know, most of the people here are unaware of, you know, the enjoyment that you might get from seeing the quilts on display, but that's okay. You know, maybe the lumberjack festival that I have deep in my heart and will come out one of these days will be your thing. But you know, again, these are a wide variety of things that, you know, we're looking to attract and provide entertainment for a diverse group of people, not color-wise, but interest-wise, and also celebrate our heritage for the whole gamut, the Texas flag, when we had the Texian Heritage Festival, which, you know, again, I'd like to bring more of that back, but we had, you know, the Fernland dedication, we have a lot of those historical people there. So it's, you know, we're trying to have a broad base of activities. So again, it takes up a lot of time, and it is a lot of different events, but it's a relatively small part of the budget despite all of that time and attention.
In saying that, I'm also trying to get the organizations together, Montgomery County United, and the help partner with a lot of other events that go on here, you know, volunteers and whatnot. Amy, you know, we're gonna have security, have to take care of those signs, okay?
Yeah.
So I think it takes people stepping up, and I'm not just talking because this event will happen regardless of what you gotta do.
Right.
You know, so, but I just think if we, the stakeholders here, can see representation from the city, matter of fact, that's what they look for, and that's what we try to promote, so.
Well, make a motion? All right. I'll make a motion that we accept the approve the request for Arnett Easley to grant, is it $4,000?
Yes, sir.
$4,000 to Montgomery County United as outlined in the request.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the economic development grant request in the amount of $4,000 for Montgomery County United. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion on this item? All those in favor of approving the economic development grant, the economic grant request from Montgomery County United in the amount of $4,000, say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The motion carries unanimously, and we will approve the economic grant request for Montgomery County United. Jumping to item number 6, discuss and consider wayfinding signage standard for use in the city of Montgomery. Richard, Dave?
Thank you. Last meeting, the concept of developing a uniform set of distinct signage for the city, especially in relation to the historic district and other sites of note in the city came up. Wayfinding signage is any type of sign that gives direction. They exist to help the customer find their way without lengthy explanations or complicated maps, to help direct them to points of interest within a community. They can be helpful in directing people to find their sites of interest or other areas of note for tourism that we're trying to relate them to. And signage, if done right like that, can become part of the community's identity. So with that, our local landscape architect prepared some documentation for you.
I thought we had to just run through that real quick, and I think it was in talking with Becky over the day through email, realized that I was giving you a basic definition, and I think Becky was looking for was more examples from other cities. But is there, what I can ask is, are there any thoughts or questions, just about the idea in, general? It's, the stuff that we see in wayfinding in general is, one of the most important aspects of it. Equally as important is the information and the thought process that goes into developing the plan. It really gets down to the fine grain, but at the same time, just trying to wrestle with something as big as a city brand, that you want to put on it. So you're rolling a lot of stuff into one project. It's not something that, can happen overnight, and, you see some where, it's, one way, and it's eventually going to be, modified a little bit, as you fine tune things. But the idea is, we're at a point where we can really define it, from scratch, because there's nothing that, outside the, kind of the vernacular, if you will, of, we like the historic feel, we like, certain elements, but there's nothing that, that we can't do in terms of, starting a project like that. So.
We heard from the library. I received an email from, is
I
it
think
the
we all got that.
Okay, I was waiting.
Yeah.
I don't know, I figured we all, directional signage is very important. I mean, it's very
I
important.
talked to them as well. They talked to me at least twice. Once was about signage on 105, and so I got them in touch with TxDOT, and then there was another one that I can't.
I mean, that again adds to the character of the city. It shows that we're buttoned up, and it's clean, and we should have directional signage, so.
So for me, one of the problems is that in the strategy, it said $50,000 for a study. And I'm thinking, well, let's just start renting stuff. I mean, I don't want to be thinking about it.
Yeah, we don't need a study to tell us what we need. We know that.
We need a brand though of some sort,
Yeah,
or some type of agreed upon theme of what the signs look like.
I think the Texas flag is the most enduring theme that we could possibly have. So I mean, the basis of it is pretty much down, but it turns out that there's a lot more information than you could possibly imagine that goes into that. And that's why I was hoping to have maybe a little bit more of a, here's a couple of other cities' strategies, and these are like what they got for whatever it is they paid for their surveys and, or their studies. So it turns out there's a lot more than, just printing out a few, flags to stick on poles in various places that point to the library.
I'd want it done right. I want it to look professional, like we take pride in the things that we're pointing people to, like our parks and our historic buildings,
Right.
and letting them know how to get there. So I think it needs to be done right, and that requires some type of planning effort.
Right, and I think for us, one of the biggest, it's not a failure exactly, but obviously our parking situation is an issue. So for us, any wayfinding strategy really needs to address how to get people to parking and then get them to walk to their destinations, or be willing to walk. So I think that that's more than just wishful thinking that people will walk, and So,
Becky, are there companies that do this for
so it
cities?
turns out, yes.
I mean, because, you know, we're not all the most graphically inclined when it comes to what they know works, and
Right.
maybe we should move towards getting someone to hop on that, give us a few examples of what that would look like.
Right, so I've been flooding Dave's inbox today, and he's been very patiently not ignoring me, or at least he's been sending me things that don't look like he's got a chat bot responding. And so perhaps over the next week, he can send out an email that includes his favorites, so we can see kind of what a study would look like. And then maybe next meeting, we could agree that we do want to study, and then we RFQ for a study. So if that's the direction we want to go, because if you guys are right, and it costs about $50,000, we could fit that in our budget for this year.
I think that's a good plan.
I agree. Wait,
And-
anything to add?
Yeah, no, I'm just stay away from the generic text dot signage, you know.
Well, I think we have to have text dot signage as well, or we can have text dot signage as well, because we can't put anything else in the right of way. So you're stuck with the library guy in blue, if you want it that close to the road. And that's not the worst thing ever. But that can potentially complement, or maybe, you know, and also we can't stop it, because if you look, you know, Longview has their mini golf, if the library wants the library, and do we use that as a complement to some of our bigger attractions? I don't know.
Can we put it just outside the right of way?
We can
Maybe
put
that's
our
part,
signage
maybe
outside the right
it's
of
part
way.
of the plan.
That's a good idea.
Paying someone to give us advice on how not to put ugly signs out.
Because it just becomes very busy.
Yeah.
cheap
Right.
signage.
I noticed the other day on my house on Worsham the other day, and I have a speed hump, or I don't know the difference between a hump and a bump, but it's
They're humps.
even the pole was a very antique-y looking pole with it wasn't your standard 2.5 inch stainless pipe.
Mhm.
I mean, I was like, wow. I mean, it's I'm glad that's there, and you never noticed it before, so
You know, this
I
is,
guess I
we're
should
not,
pay attention.
and we're not quite at this level, but if you go into the Galleria area, you know, everything's stainless, everything's polished, sharp, directional signage is everywhere. It's fantastic. Now, I know we're not there, but why can't we be something more Montgomeryized?
I was gonna say, stainless
Yeah.
might not suit us anyway, so that's something to consider. You know, what we go for is not the dollar value, but really the image that it portrays. Your stainless steel is much more of a modern.
Right.
Correct.
But I think to his point is consistency. And
Right.
it's, the light poles are brown, or the arms to the stoplights are brown, you know, whatever it is, maybe it's black, I don't know.
You know, when you get on Post Oak Drive, you're in that district.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you feel it.
You don't have to do the typical galvanized, hard, you
Right.
know, just
Right.
cheap
It just
look.
softens, even if
Yeah.
you've got an ugly sign on it, at least it softens it up a little bit.
It's small things that go a long way.
Right. Well, and we talked about this earlier when we did the downtown plan. I think you estimated that, you know, the fancier black poles for utilities would only cost $5,000. And, you know, since the city's the size that it is, you know, I expected it to be like, you know, $50,000 pole. And, I mean, the upgrades that give you a visual impact, you know, over the standard wood poles, which are not that attractive, I mean, might not cost as much as we think.
Right.
So they're definitely worth doing, and especially while we're small, and as we grow, you know, the cost of redoing everything if you're big all at once is obviously cost prohibitive, but if you're, you know, if you do it now and then add on as you grow, it's
Well, and
much
that's
less.
part of setting a standard also.
Right,
And I agree, we probably want to go ahead and start pigeonholing, you know, what we want to be the look. So as future boards come along, they can build upon it, as opposed to, you know, what used to happen where things were just all wishy-washy, never knew, there was no rhyme or reason for making any one decision. Now we have a plan, we have a master plan, and we should start to develop something that will give people boilerplate.
Yeah, and these signs are not just wayfinding, they're also somewhat like marketing where you're
Right.
you're advertising the attractions to your
Right.
city. I used to drive to A&M coming from Conroe, so I drove through Montgomery all the time, and all I saw was historic houses, that little gray brown sign on 105. I was like, oh cool, there's historic houses somewhere.
Right.
That's nice. And I just kept passing through. But being able to have nice signs that say, look, there are attractions here that are worth seeing because we put this nice sign up, and we've got a park, and we've got a nice library, and all that kind of stuff.
We might be able to get businesses to participate in some way as well.
Well,
So
so,
we're gonna have in the front
I
and
have it
all.
on my phone so nobody can see it, but the city of Tofino, which is a small city in Canada, has like, they have the materials, they have the colors, they have the primary fonts and like some of the smaller ones laid out. They've got their swatches and colors and like how they're going to, you know, they have all this set out, or that was part of their wayfinding. And, you know, what their signs look like, you know, so again, you use that as the base as you grow. It's not all, you know, somebody, you know, it's
Yeah.
not all the printmaker who just decides based on what they've got in their inventory. It's really, it's kind of cool to see how you know, you start with a cohesive plan and then you continue to build on that.
I
like
think,
it.
yeah, right? I think we're all in agreement, we're ready to
Okay.
push forward on that, yeah.
Okay. Dave, does that make sense to you based on our discussion and your understanding of,
It does.
and
To the
for you
point-
guys, do you have any objection as well?
To the point of the RFQ and kind of how we think about it, and, you know, to your point on kind of the long-term, you know, vision, I think, you know, that there are, you know, there may be an opportunity to take, you know, a certain amount of it to, you know, a 100%. And then there's other things that, you know, we acknowledge that need to tie in at some point, and we need to get those to 50% or some type of that, you know, like you say, you know, some type of a guiding vision to, you know, here's how this, you know, the rest of this, you know, starts to play out.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay?
Is that inconsistent with what either of you understand the process to be, or how wayfinding works?
I think you're gonna do some level of study. Within 5 years of studies. I'm not a huge studies for study's sake. At the bottom of it, fix the low end. If that's integrating that aesthetic into your street signs, or, you know, as part of that, you can approach TxDOT and may let you occupy, okay?
That would be interesting.
With an agreement to occupy and you maintain it.
Right.
That's
Which
good.
would get rid of the problem of the brown and blue signs competing with, okay, that would be nice. Okay,
All I can say is no.
great. We won't say our signs are better than yours. Okay. So I don't think that we need to take any action on that, since it's not really that type of action item. Number 6, Richard, do you agree?
I agree.
Okay. So with y'all's permission, then we'll move on to item number 7, update on progress of Clipper Street project, sidewalk project.
City Engineer Chris Rosnowski is here to give us an update.
Okay.
So just a reminder, so these are the sidewalks from Prairie to Fernland Park. So it's on the south side of the street, and then there is a crosswalk at Bessie Owens and at Fernland as well. So the design is essentially complete in the bid package. Where we're at now is we have, in order to stay outside the right of way in a couple areas, you go around some parking deed easements from the Historical Society and MISD. So we eliminated just the 2 entities with everyone down there. So that's our next step, is we have those exhibits to approach them and get those agreements to place it, so we have the sidewalk farther off the road and to avoid some conflicts that we have down the path. So we're ready to bid probably within the next 30 days, assuming we get the easements confirmed for that. And then, you know, just related to this is, you know, we've been discussing with some, you know, developments down the way on how this continues to get extended further down toward Stevens Stewart Ramsey. But today I'll end at Fernland with the ability to be extended further.
Are they thinking that they would extend it on the south side or the north side?
I think, so the development is on the north side, and so it's going to going from C.B. Stewart on the north side to Racetrack. And then so that leaves just essentially the part in front of Fernland that can be closing the gap
Okay.
later, so then ultimately have a continuous path from transoms all the way down to.
Would it make sense for us to do that piece in front of Berlin now, instead of doing it as,
I think until we see the final design, so the development that we're working with has the proposed entrance along the boundary. So until we can make sure we can get it all to fit in and then do it at that chunk, and maybe we just partner with them and say, hey, let's extend it with your contract that you already have, your contractor, and just sharing the cost of that. But right now, if we extend it and that development falls through, is kind of
right, the sidewalk?
sidewalk to nowhere. So at least this gets us from.
You would be going to racetrack, but, I mean, the acknowledgement of probably the survey that you go down that far, it's, it's an incremental add, but at the same time, it's, all this stuff.
It gets us from a good defined point of firmly on, and then the second step with the development. If it doesn't, then we need to talk about the south side of the street. Maybe that makes more sense for the long view greens. Those are developed commercial sites.
Okay. But for now, there's a step anyway that we could make that connection with another project, so it's not calling in a contractor for a tiny spot.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Which would presumably be ridiculously expensive as a standalone, but, okay.
It'll be small enough as well that we're not, once we get to that, we have city property and urban land that we can work with. It's not as constrained as when we get down with Historic Society and NISD, the spacing that we have to work with. Opens up a little bit as we get further.
Just to reconfirm that this isn't anticipating the expansion of Klepper Street?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Just one-
Yeah, that's again also why we set it so far away.
To need an easement, yeah.
To get us as far away as we can, so whatever happens with Klepper,
Yeah.
the sidewalks are in place and not having to get redone, ripped up, if Klepper is.
And to be specific, it's a city project that the MEDC is contributing its own money to.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. So the city will bid the project, and then we'll come back with bids to MEDCs. Here's the final construction cost came out to.
Okay.
So then we have some specifics.
Okay, but we probably won't be approving it, you're just letting us know when we come back to MEDC.
Correct.
And the EDC's funds won't be expended until there's actually something to, get, for them to be spent on, not just giving the money to the city, ahead of the project.
I assume WGA did the design?
Correct.
So there was a sidewalk on both sides originally, I guess, or are we doing the smaller sidewalk? One time I thought I saw in a drawing where there was going to be a wider.
So
Yeah, on the north side, I think there was an envision.
at SEO,
No, and the north side is envisions that there would be a, like a bike path, golf cart path kind of setup.
Right.
But we're just doing the south side, which is purely pedestrian.
that is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
And that's what, 36 inches, 48 inches wide, or?
Maybe there was 6 foot wide.
6, okay.
So it's still, it's a decent sized sidewalk, not that you're having, the thought was, again, with festivals and things downtown, that you have enough space that you don't have to step off into the ditch or step off to the side, that's 4 foot wide sidewalk.
Thank you.
And then it also includes,
You have this there?
signage crosswalks.
Thank
Would
you,
those be the, small entryway crosswalks, or, so that we'll have like a fancy crosswalk at Prairie and Buffer?
I'm just talking about striping on the street.
Got it. So no, is what you said.
No brick inlay or anything.
All right, does anyone have any questions for Chris or Richard or Dave on that? All right, then with your permission, I'll move on to item number 8. Discuss and consider authorizing city staff to prepare and publish a request for qualifications on Mccallen Street design on behalf of the MEDC.
Okay, as you will remember from the downtown master plan, the Mccallen area runs through the historic downtown area. It's probably the backbone of that project, all of that work. One of the main attributes that we're looking at, festival space, place for people to gather. Many events run through downtown. There's a number of uses that were talked about in the master plan. I know I saw this one copy that was circulating around earlier. What's worked out through here is a basic description of the work for that, or what that project would be for Mccallen Street, and then what the improvements would be in the scope of services. If this is something that the EDC board is ready for us to work forward on, we can put this out and develop an RFQ, request for qualifications. My goal would be to be able to get that out, quickly enough that we would have enough time, ideally, to get it back in time before the month of May is up for our meeting there. That's a tight schedule, but that would be the goal. So these things tend to stretch out. I think you'll remember the downtown master plan.
Right.
I know while we're waiting for it, it feels like it goes on and on. There's a lot of back and forth that happens. Once this gets started, this is going to be dealing with a lot more detail than the basic conceptual plan. I think there's going to be a lot more opportunity with the company doing it, that you have all of that back and forth, because this gets to be doing a detailed plan. This is for street level up. The city is working is preparing to start work on a survey for downtown. Once the survey is done, it will be moving forward with the drainage plan.
Who's doing that? Who's doing the survey?
It's through the city engineer.
Okay. Okay.
So the city's taking care of the surveys, and then for the drainage master plan, for the water line improvements.
So they're doing the drainage master plan too?
I'm sorry?
No. What about the drainage master plan? What did you say about that? Because it's going to be needing to be done before we do Mccallen, right?
Right, the below ground items, that's being taken care of by the city. And the city's already taking the steps to move forward on this.
Including the drainage master plan. They're doing RFQ, or are they doing some other process for the master drainage plan?
You're getting ahead of where we are.
Okay.
We're trying to get, we're almost to the point of where we're getting the bids in for the survey.
Okay.
So that's, you obviously have to have the survey done, or we're going to do the drainage plan.
Sure.
So, but the city is taking care of the below ground elements there.
Okay.
So what we're talking about here is, the streetscape items. This is more of where it's the EDC portion. Both these need to run in parallel. Obviously, we're not going to move forward with any streetscape work until the underground stuff is done. But we want to be ready, have this plan to be ready to plug it in when the time's correct.
Are we talking a plan, or are we talking construction drawings? Like
For which
this,
part? Which
for
part?
the McCown redevelopment.
For the
Is this
streetscape
another conceptual,
No,
is this like another level down, or are we actually getting down to the nitty gritty pavement, all that kind of stuff? What are we actually talking about?
this is getting into specifics.
Okay.
Including-
So it'd basically be able to be shovel ready by the time this is done, to where we
This
get
with
it
engineering
for
design,
bids.
bidding services, preliminary design drawings, complete transitions to adjoining streets and areas, 90% drawings, draft specifications.
Okay.
Final drawings and specifications. We're getting us ready for the bidding,
Yeah.
for the work.
Okay.
Good.
So Brian, just a little bit of background. So the city right now is planning a televising project for the sewer system that includes downtown. So we're assessing all the sewer lines to know what repairs need to be done in advance of
Right.
whatever service improvements are done. The survey that we're talking about would be a full topo survey of downtown. We're phasing it out.
Okay.
And again, the idea there is that you didn't have it for the use of the drainage study, for the design work, for the streetscape improvements, the design work for any water line improvements, drain improvements. Again, it's one master kind of topo file of the downtown to then be able to reuse with the other entities. Because likely, we'll have someone on the downtown improvements, someone on the drainage study, someone on the underground infrastructure improvements. But at least, so the city's not paying for new surveys each time, have one survey that covers it to be able to use it across the cities.
And the city's paying for all that, essentially. Okay. And then after we do the survey, we'll get a master drainage plan somehow through the city. And then this will tap on top of that. Because we'll need that before, if we're going to go underground with the drainage, we're going to need to have some type of plan of where to send the drainage. so.
But the city will be addressing will be addressing the drainage, the water, the wastewater. What we're talking about, this would be the streetscape plan.
I would just want to make sure that we've got that stuff in line, in place before we send out RFQs and start a design and not have a plan in place for the other items. So I'm seeing those as a higher priority as far as chronology is concerned, or otherwise we need to incorporate it into this so that when they are doing design, they have direction based off of the survey, based off of the drainage plan, based off of their water and sewer study.
Are you saying that you think all of the other city work has to be designed before we?
I think there needs to be at least a plan on that. It needs to be going and moving forward before we have someone designing the Mccallen redevelopment stuff. Where are they going to know what's under, like, there's a water line that needs to be upsized under Mccallen Street. They're not going to know that until they do an analysis, or if they need to run a trunk line down the middle of Mccallen Street to get it out, get the drainage out, they're not going to know that until they have a master drainage plan or what elevation they can tie into and all that kind of stuff. So I do see those things that need to come before Mccallen redevelopment design.
Kind of just determine how deep they have to dig all that stuff in rather
Yes.
than what the surface looks like?
Yes, but you want to know that before you redo the surface.
Right,
Well,
so
absolutely.
you don't start the surface project till the underground stuff is.
But
done,
we're doing design drawings for the surface stuff here. So, I mean, and they do play a part together. They do integrate
You
together.
don't start building the surface until the below.
But I think you need to have you don't even want to start designing until you have a plan for your
Well,
drainage.
I don't think that would change the concept of the surface appearance.
No, but they're going to be designing utilities and maybe not. They're going to be tying the surface into the utilities.
Well, I see-
Fire hydrants
I
and
see
storm
here also it
drains
says
and manholes.
private Improvement, there's where the parking lot is, I see it looks like it makes access over to Maiden Lane, which I don't think is there now. Are we planning on participating, the EDC, with private property? Because obviously it looks like it's being tied into the concept
So
also.
there currently is room and traffic, does move through there. So there's going to have to be a future discussion with the property owners there as how that works, and, maybe in the future, it's not, there's another arrangement to allow.
Yeah,
it to be
that'd be
public.
part of drainage also, I mean, obviously.
I mean, I'm not the only engineer in the room, so I don't know if y'all have any input on whether one needs to go before the other.
I think the thought process here was, since it's starting the RFQ process, by the time to get qualifications,
Right.
review them, select a architect engineer to do the project. We're 4 or 5 months down the road.
No, I get that. I just want to make sure that there is a plan in place to have this other stuff done before we get to that point and we're like, oh wait, we still don't have a drainage plan, or we don't have an idea what the water and sewer is doing underneath the ground. So,
We're not sitting there going in 3 months going, well, now we need to do a drainage plan.
I know.
We already know we need to do that. We're taking the early steps of it now.
Okay.
That's going to keep going.
Yeah.
The goal of this was so that as the city's engineer is moving forward with those items, the EDC would, have someone coming on who can then be in communication with the city's engineer of how this is going on and be developing the streetscape improvements, as early as possible in the process. The goal being that as soon as the work is, or as soon as practical, after that work is done on the city's end, then the EDC could be looking forward to implement the bidding and making that work happen on the streetscape without there being an extended delay in between.
So rather than waiting for a discrete stop in one process before beginning the other process, the two happen as concurrently as possible.
or you could put the drainage plan into whenever you're designing the street, you could incorporate other items into it where, I need to put this underground, let's design it to go. I don't know, you can bring it together if you want to even. I just want to make sure there's an idea or plan in place to make sure that they're happening chronologically in the best manner. So, but
I agree, especially on the drainage, when it comes to the placement of inlets and how it works in the streetscape, that's key. Underground water and sewer.
it may be fine, you don't have to do anything. Yeah.
Correct. But yeah, for the drainage, that the studies available, so hand in hand, those designs are going together because they are, more so than water and sewer, are going in the area.
Yeah.
final product of the study heavily dictates the final product of the streetscapes.
Yeah.
The bigger part of your drainage study is identifying your outfall points.
Yeah, for here, we're on a hill. I don't really,
If you're gonna do Klepper for 2 blocks, but the outfall is 2 blocks out, then you gotta know what outside that
right.
surface improvement needs to be done.
Kyle, your firm, you helped us, did the map down from the master plan. Are we at the right point to start preparing this RFQ to put it out in a month or two? Or,
That would depend on where you're at with your drainage study. And the two could run concurrently, because there's gonna be a little bit of back.
Or you could incorporate it into this as well.
yeah,
But
and my goal here of bringing this was to to try to get them to run as concurrently as possible and minimize the time, knowing that Mccallen Street, there's a lot of business ongoing. It's at some point in the future going to get torn up for drainage, water line installation, wastewater line installation, and I think I would hate to be the business owner who saw X amount of months of that, and then 6 months later, we come back and do something again, whereas we could at least stage it and then run, hopefully, one more seamless project from start to end.
If you're gonna tear it up and put it underground, then you might as well put the surface back permanently.
Right, and that's really my long-term goal here, is to try to get this timed as concurrently as possible.
going back to your point, it's not about the size or really, it's really about where you're gonna, if you're gonna go underground, it has to poke out somewhere. And you may have to go 2 blocks one direction or the other, and you may have to move sewer, you may have to, hopefully not, but you probably will have to move water. You probably have to will do some type of pavement rework for those drainage trunk lines, and those could really add to the cost and the design of this project. And I think it'd be good to know that before we really start getting into design, that maybe this is a much bigger project than just doing surface level rehab work. So that's what I'm kind of getting at. So it may not be a big deal. Maybe we can, it's on top of a hill, so everything's kind of draining away from it. So maybe we do have plenty of outfall and elevations, but I would like to know that before we start.
Well, what's before you tonight is not to release an RFQ.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, that was part of the offer for us to develop and publish this. But like I said, my goal was to try to be able to get this done concurrently and as seamlessly as possible. If y'all want us to do that, we'll start development of it. If y'all think we need to wait.
I think it can be done concurrently. I just want to make sure that we are considering that in the timeline. And if we need to, we could maybe even incorporate the drainage master plan into the Mccallen design. It's fine.
Well,
I just want to make sure that that's done.
Well, I didn't look at incorporating that into this design, because what I'm putting forward to you here is something the EDC would be paying for. And the drainage master plan is something the city was going to be paying for. If you're saying that you think the EDC should pay for that and include that, that's different than I was considering.
Okay.
Could you split the difference by releasing them at the same time and putting in the summary that people are invited to bid for them together?
They need to be separate if you're going to bid on them. Or you're not bidding, you're just releasing our SOQs.
Just as, if I were to give him advice, it would be for our city engineer to do the drainage study, mainly because we've got a contract with him that includes the consultant that is.
So maybe we need a,
City's drainage work, and I feel like I will get a better result.
and that's fine. Yeah, I just want to make sure we get the ball rolling on that before we start committing to something like this.
Yeah, and the city engineer is well aware of the downtown master plan, as well as the desire that this has to be communicated back and forth to work.
And I guess, so to further that point, where the pipe is right now poking out is the Brookshire Brothers or the detention pond. That's,
So it's going south, or, okay.
Well, I don't think any of us know where the exact studies are or the documents are at. We at least have a direction, and, these guys have the history to go find it and not, kind of start from scratch, looking at a project again if I were to advocate for an in-house.
Well, I guess that's up to the city, I guess, or
Right.
the city staff, whatever, because the MDC is not gonna pay for it, so. But,
Yeah, to your point, I'll echo that, those types of stuff are absolutely critical to know, or to get to any meaningful design, on the streetscape stuff, because where the inlets go, where the fire hydrants.
or if we have to tie into 105, drainage, or whatever, that's gonna be a huge headache,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I'm sure that you're gonna have to go under 105 where the water current
Hopefully you can
goes
stick,
under.
there's probably ways you could even get the drainage out there before you get to tech stop, but that's what we need to know,
Yeah,
so.
agreed.
Okay, so I think we're all speaking the same language, just using slightly different terminology. It all has to work together
Yes.
before we start digging.
Drainage is my forte, so you may want to put a little bit of money on that, so, because I'm going to be looking at that.
It just has to drain down.
I'm sorry, what I also heard is that Ryan is offering some free advice to the city.
Oh, yeah, for sure, and at least drainage wise.
Make sure it gets some minutes.
Okay, so this is an item that needs to be specifically acted on. Consider authorizing city staff to prepare and publish an RFQ on Mccallen Street design. Would anyone like to go forth and authorize?
I'll make a motion to that end. Do I have this?
That's second.
It has been moved and seconded that we authorize city staff to prepare and publish an RFQ on Mccallen Street design on behalf of the MEDC. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires majority vote. Is there any further discussion on this item? All those in favor of authorizing city staff to prepare and publish an RFQ on Mccallen Street design on behalf of the MEDC, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion carries unanimously, and we will authorize city staff to prepare and publish an RFQ on Mccallen Street design on behalf of the MEDC. Item number 9, consideration of possible action on FY 21-22 budget amendment number 1.
In January, the MEDC Board of Directors approved a sponsorship of up to $8,000 for Montgomery Music and Mudbugs Festival to be held on March 26th in Montgomery. To fully account for these funds, the board should approve a budget amendment to transfer the funds from 56002.3 events to 56100.7 Mudbugs and Music. Also included in this budget amendment are previous approvals from January 2022, when the MEDC Board of Directors approved to use excess funds to be spent on traffic supplies and fresh holiday decorations. As discussed, these were excess total funds from Light Up the Park of $1,151.01, Christmas Parade of $3,173.53, and Snow and Historic Montgomery of $5,632.31. The grand total of excess funds is $9,956.85. To fully account for the proper use of these funds, the board should approve a budget amendment to transfer those funds from accounts 56100.5 Light Up the Park, 56100.8 Christmas Parade, and 56100.H Snow and Historic Montgomery to 56100.A Events and Equipment. We're looking for a motion to do just that.
You wanna make one?
That was good, I'll make a motion that we move those accounts over to 56100A.
As presented.
And I assume also moving the $8,000 to 56100.7 music and notebooks.
Yes.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we move $8,000 from 56002.3 events to 56100.7 Mudbugs and Music, and various amounts from Light Up the Park, Christmas Parade, and Snow and Historic Montgomery to 56100.A Events Equipment. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all those in favor of the budget amendment number 1 as previously discussed, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion carries unanimously, and we will act on FY 2021-22 budget amendment number 1. Item number 10, City Administration's Development Report, March 2022.
Thank you. We have both, high levels of residential and commercial development going on throughout the city, with, what seems to be more to come of both. On On the east side, what I'm probably getting asked most about these days is the discount tire that will be coming on the north side of 105. And maybe you'll have noticed by now that the shops of Montgomery have put up a new building that they'll be adding to, so good amount of commercial development down that way. While in the month of February we had no new homes completed, which is not necessarily unusual coming off of Christmas holidays, in January we did have 24 new single home permits issued. So the building has started. A lot of that building, is either in the hills of Town Creek, where there are 70 new lots being added, or soon to be added, and in Town Creek Crossing, where there's 140 lots in the new sections that are building off on the east side. So we've got development going residentially, both on the east and the west side. We're moving forward with several of our projects in the city. Last couple of months, the city have finished projects increasing the size of the water lines connecting the eastern and the western parts of the city to allow for greater volume and pressure flow falling through to the west side due to the increased development out that way. We're moving forward right now on construction and upgrades at water plant number 3. A brand new ground storage tank and hydrodynamic pressure tank are preparing to go into service soon. Also, at water plant number 3, we'll be getting a new generator so that we'll be able to fully operate that plant during power outages. So what's out there now is, as the plant has grown, power generation doesn't support the full size of the plant now. So in the future, after that generator is added, we'll be able to fully operate that plant during power outage. We're also, that generator was recently bid out, accepted by the city council. Also recently bid out, and we'll be moving forward soon on projects up on and near Martin Luther King Jr., including drainage, water, and wastewater work. So we got a lot of our own projects going on in addition to the residential and commercial development going on. We're still waiting on TxDOT with the 149 turn lane to go turn from traffic heading north to traffic heading east. I believe we were told September of last year is when it would be done, and now we're waiting on September this year again, I think. We talked about the Klepper sidewalk. We have another sidewalk plan running from the downtown area north to MLK and over towards the school that's there. We're looking to participate in the upcoming TxDOT Safe Routes to School program to get grant money for that. And many of you may have noticed that TxDOT is an ongoing project with 105 that extends roughly from Montgomery, the eastern side of Montgomery, to I-45, mostly running through Conroe, but it does catch part of the eastern part of the city. Most notably right now, you may have noticed at 2054 at One Star Parkway and 105 there, the increased construction for the size of the turn lanes and the expansion there. We talked earlier about the Klepper sidewalk project and the rest of the development. My report has nice pictures from the downtown master plan, but we talked about the RFP earlier. At the end, which was page 10 development report, we have one business report open for 2022. We do know more are coming, and we'll continue to track that through the end of the year. The last thing from our report is I would announce that we do have a final selection for the special projects manager. And after going through a number of qualified candidates, including 3 very good interviews, but that position will be taken by Amy Murray.
Congratulations.
And she agreed to accept it, so I'm not letting her out. Following the next report, the engineer's report. The engineer sitting right behind me, but unless you left the room. First page of the report, you can see a really nice picture of that ground storage tank under construction. And you can see if you're looking at that picture, which is page 83 of the information that you have. To the top end of the picture, you see the existing ground storage tank. and you see what looks like the top you would see through the beams. Because right now, when that picture was taken, the roof was not complete on that storage tank. But
How do you get way up there and take that photo?
umbrella,
Yeah, that's a big old selfie stick.
Hot air balloon?
So if you're only 27% complete by value, are they gonna be late?
So they are very slow with estimates. So we just got the next one, so the one on the council agenda tonight or tomorrow night gets them up to 60% complete. So right now they expect to have the ground storage tank and the hydrant. The ground storage tank is online by the end of this month, the hydrant tank middle of next month, and then the cooling tower shortly thereafter. May.
Okay.
So they're a little bit behind us.
So we'll be okay for summer?
Yes, and that was the main push, is get the tanks online, so that because right now we took down a 100,000 gallon tank to build a 210,000 gallon tank. So it'll be online here next.
Okay. I was gonna say it's a little risky to not be,
Yes.
to be that slow.
and to be fair, this is the February report. We're a little behind.
Right.
Right.
But after Texas, a year behind, you don't wanna have your water plant.
It's a waste.
None of us here want to be entering summer without a completed water plant, that's for sure. And like the rest of the projects I touched on in the development report.
Is this the wastewater treatment plant behind the shops? So it's
No, this is the water plant on 297,
water plant, okay,
kind of behind Pleasant.
okay.
Yeah, we're still a little ways away from needing to make
They all look
the
alike.
water treatment
All right,
plant,
we're still at 40.
I can drive down there and look at it.
depending on who's calibrating. Okay, any questions for Chris or Richard on this topic? All right then, with your permission, I'll move on. We don't have anything for executive session, if I am properly aware of that. So board inquiry, is there anything that anyone would like to have discussed at our next meeting, wants answers on immediately, other items? Otherwise,
I
we will.
do have one question.
Sure.
Make it long. I'm just curious, is our mascot goat, Monty, is he going to be able to go, maybe able to go into action by the parade on May 28th, perhaps? We have the costume, right? And we have the,
We're currently working with the high school teacher who has mascot experience to make sure we have some performers who are ready to go.
I just thought that's
What was the date of that?
28, 27, 28, 27, our next event.
Oh,
That's the first next event. I don't think,
I think that's
There's horses during that event, so it might not be prudent to have. our
it's a goat.
mascot.
Goats aren't afraid of horses.
we're afraid.
Are you gonna wear the goat costume?
Well, usually they put the horses at the end. I was thinking maybe the goat would just be in
It
a
is a
car.
car parade, so
Yeah.
it's cars and horses, so perhaps there's a
Wide
convertible.
trip.
You know, put it in a car and just have them, waving and stuff. I'm just saying, look, we paid a lot of money for the goat. Let's get the goat out.
I'll see what I can
Sounds
do.
good. I thought you were doing a launch package for him, Jeff, so,
Oh, look, if you need someone to perform, I mean,
not the performance, I was thinking. All right, anyone would like to make a, sorry, wait.
sorry.
Motion to adjourn, we have a second, Wade's motion.
I second.
Dan?
Everybody seconded it.
All